Good morning. Good evening. I don't know what time of day it is. I don't know what day it is, to be totally fair. So I'm just going to say hi. I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to spend a little bit of Sukkot together with you. While I'm talking, please make yourselves comfortable. Grab a warm drink, a snack. Join us from your sukkah if you have one nearby. I'm Ariella Mortkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH. We have beautiful new faces here today, and I am so glad that you found your way here. 30 seconds about SVIVAH. SVIVAH is about revolutionizing the way that women come together in community, discovering and exploring the unique and beautiful Torah that comes from our lived experience, a space where Torah is personal and the personal is Torah. Our goal here is always to learn with and from each other and to do all of this within a beautiful community of care. We define both Jewish and women very broadly. If you want to be with us, we want you with us and welcome. We love that we are multi-generational and diverse in our backgrounds and affiliations, and we come together in celebration and support of women, our strengths, our unique perspectives, and our ways of impacting the world. And Rosensky, SVIVAH's Director of Community, for your presence and wisdom as always. To the Covenant and Aviv Foundations, who constantly encourage us to find ways to come together thoughtfully, creatively, and meaningfully. I am so thankful that we put this date on the calendar a while back. A chance to be back with the amazing Rabbanit Aliza Sperling, SVIVAH's Director of Education and heart and soul of everything that SVIVAH is. It is so special to be back learning with you. First, I want to selfishly take a second to wish Aliza a belated happy birthday. This year should be a year of blessing and health and joy for you. And it is impossible today. It is really not lost on me that October 12th, 2023 was the first time that we gathered after October 7th, 2023. So I am staring at my computer screen with the date. It was then we were also with beautiful teachers from Israel with Batya Hefter. And we were trying so hard to feel so close when we felt so far away. And today it is a blessing to be together, to come closer together, to call each other into our respective virtual Sukkot and ask the women who have inspired us, taught us, and guided us to join us here today alongside our wonderful teachers. This virtual Sukkah feels very full, and I am very thankful. And in a moment of waiting, with all of the emotions that we're holding, it is indeed a blessing to be waiting with all of you and in the company of the wisdom of such inspiring women and inspiring teachers. So Aliza, thank you for knowing how we needed to gather this morning. Thank you for bringing us together today. And I just want to say that we have missed you terribly, and we are so glad to be back learning with you.
Thank you so much, Ariella, and thank you, everybody. It's so nice to be with you. I'm just going to let you know that I have a little bit of a cold, so that's why I sound like Darth Vader today. But I am really still very happy to be here with you. I'm just going to change the view so I can see everybody. Okay. Oh, hello. It's really been a long time, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Um, Today is we are in the holiday of Sukkot, and Sukkot is the holiday, the time of our happiness. And I've been reflecting on happiness and what does it mean, especially during these very fraught days. And I heard or I read recently a Dvar Torah, a piece of Torah from Rabbi Meish Taragin, where he compares Pesach, Passover, and Sukkot. And he says that on Pesach, we just had a like the thing that we used, the piece of nature that we used was a piece of hyssop because we took that and we dipped it in blood and we used it back in Egypt to paint the doorposts. But on Sukkot, we've come a long way. We've come a long way from that time of slavery. And on Sukkot, we have a bouquet. We have the forest species, we hold them out like a bouquet, as opposed to that lone little hyssop that we used on Pesach. And I was thinking about some other differences between Pesach and Sukkot. And I was thinking that on Pesach, the way that we were saved is that we had to go inside We had to, it kind of reminds me of the ways in which, unfortunately, so many people recently in Israel have heard a siren and have had to go inside for safety to avoid the angel of death. And that's what we had to do on Pesach. But on Sukkot, we leave our houses. The action that we do is not to enter into our houses and kind of hide inside our houses, but it's actually that we leave our houses and we go outside and we sit in this little shack in this very fragile hut. And we're so vulnerable there. And what struck me is that really Sukkot is kind of the culmination of all the holidays that we've had throughout the year. It's the culmination starting from Passover of the three regalim, the three main holidays where we would go to Jerusalem. And it's also the culmination after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and all that spiritual introspection that we do. And you would think that after the culmination should be a day in which we feel completely secure and happy, and that our happiness comes from feeling secure. And yet, what we do is we say, we kind of acknowledge that we are never going to feel secure. Like that's always something that we aspire to, but it's really not something that happens. And what we have to do is find happiness in our insecurity and in our fragility. And I've been reflecting on this a lot as we've been in this, hearts in our mouths kind of time when we're thinking about the hostages, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen with the peace plan, who's coming home, which families are going to be able to bury their dead children, and you wish you knew. Excuse me. You wish you knew. But the thing is that we never know for sure. And I think that what Sukkot does is it tells us that you can be very happy and feel very insecure at the same time. And I also would want to add here that the reason that I have not been with SVIVAH for a few, I don't know, for a few weeks, a couple of months, is that I recently moved to Israel. And that was also moving from a place of relative security to a place of what will life be like here? Will I have friends? Will my kids be happy? What will things be like? I think the message of Sukkot, which speaks to me very loudly now because of our national situation and also my personal situation, is that sometimes you have to go and do and get outside and get to the next place, even when you're feeling very fragile and very insecure about it. But I think that Sukkot has another message for us, and that message is once you're out in your very fragile place, what can you do to have that happiness? What can you do to feel a little bit better about being in such an insecure place? And what we do in our Sukkot is that we invite the Ushpizin in. We invite guests in. We invite people from our past, from our present, and sometimes even from our future into our Sukkot. And we say, places can't give us security. We'll never really know that we'll have physical security. And I mean that in all kinds of ways, right? Health as well. But one thing that can help us is to have our role models with us, is to have the people who we love with us, and is to have people who are more vulnerable than we are and invite them into our sukkah with us. And so, what we're doing today in this time of hope and vulnerability and fragility is we've invited three wonderful educators into our SVIVAH Sukkah, and we've asked them, who do you want to invite into our Sukkah this year who can help us with this very difficult time and this very hopeful time and this very fragile time? What can we learn from them? And who do you want to bring in with you? And before I turn it over to our educators, I do want to say that for me personally, coming to Israel, I just want to acknowledge our founder of SVIVAH, Ariella Mortkowitz, who has been the most amazing support for me. Unfortunately, I've needed her support over the past couple of years a lot. and she has been a really wonderful support to me. So I thank her, and she's really an ushpiza in my sukkah this year. So thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Our first educator is Zoe Fertik, and I'm just pulling up her bio, but you can also see it over here in the chat. And just give me a minute while I pull it up again. Here we go. Zoe is a Jewish educator who has worked with Bina, the secular yeshiva in Tel Aviv, the Ashman Family JCC in Palo Alto, BBYO, Wexner Service Corps, Hillel, and other Jewish education programs. She is a religion major from Wesleyan University, a master's in theological studies from Harvard Divinity School, and an alumna of Hadar Pardes Wexner Graduate Fellowship and ROI. She is also a world traveler. She has been many different places in the times that I've known her. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you, Aliza. Hi, everybody. That bio is so funny. I just wanted to say this is Zoe, my friend. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here and Chag Sameach, happy Sukkot. Sukkot is called Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy. And I was asked today to talk about bringing a guest into my sukkah, into our communal sukkah, who could teach us something about joy. And when I was given that prompt, I have to tell you, there was only one person on my mind, and that is Queen Esther. So I am inviting Queen Esther today into our communal sukkah. And if you're thinking to yourself, of course, she chose Queen Esther because Zoe loves feasting and drinking and Purim and getting into costume and that kind of joy. You're right. But I also want to say that Queen Esther teaches us something about a deeper kind of joy, and I hope we're going to explore that together today. And if you're thinking to yourself, Zoe, this is Sukkot, it's not Purim. You're talking about the wrong time of year. You're right. But I also think that there are some lessons from Purim and from Queen Esther's story that we can take with us into this Sukkah, into our Sukkot, into this season, both in terms of the Jewish calendar and in terms of where we find ourselves in world history. So that is what I'm hoping we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what kind of joy can Esther teach us about, and how can we apply this Esther joy to our time in the calendar right now, to Sukkot. So with that in mind, I wanted to talk about Esther joy. What is Esther's particular type of joy? And there's actually a very famous connection between Queen Esther and joy, and it comes from the Megillah. I'm going to share my screen to show you on Safaria. There we go. So the word joy, simcha, is actually mentioned many times in the Megillah right towards the end of the book of Esther, which is what we read on Purim. And this is coming at the end of the story, and the Jews have been saved, and Mordecai has been given a position of honor in Ahasuerus's court, and the city of Shushan is ringing with joyous cries because the Jews of Shushan have been saved. And there's this famous verse here, La Yehudim Haita Ora v'simcha v'sason v'yakar. The Jews enjoyed light and gladness, happiness and honor. And this is this word simcha, and it comes here, and it comes here, and it comes again in the next verse. The word simcha, the word joy, the word happiness gets repeated several times. And this is so famous. I say that it's famous because actually this line from the book of Esther was actually lifted from the book of Esther, and it was put into the Havdalah service. La Yehudim Haita Ora v'simcha v'sason v'yakar. This line about happiness we say every single week during the Havdalah service. So once a week, we actually reference Esther to talk about joy in particular. So I want to try to figure out, what is this Esther joy? And As I mentioned, it's the end of the book. It's the end of the book of Esther. It's the end of the Purim story. The Jews have been saved. This decree was written by Haman that he was going to get us slaughtered, and it was going to happen on the 14th of Adar. And then everything went all topsy-turvy, and the exact opposite happened. And the Jews were actually saved, and we are actually exalted, and they were elevated in their position. And Shushan is having this moment of joy, this moment of relief, this happiness, this simcha, because we have been saved. And the whole city, all of the Jews, all of the people are like breathing this collective sigh, and that is called joy. That is called happiness. So there's this feeling in the book of Esther that simcha, that joy, that happiness has something to do with relief, with exhaling, with being able to take a breath and to know, wow, we've been saved, right? The unbelievable has happened. The unexpected has happened. The unbelievable has happened, and we are actually able to celebrate. We're able to experience joy in this moment of profound relief. And I want you to put yourself not in the shoes of the people who are experiencing this relief, but in the shoes of Queen Esther. I want you to imagine that you are Queen Esther in this moment, watching your people experience this collective sigh of relief. And I want you to think about what it must have felt to be her, to be Queen Esther in that moment, and to look out from your castle, from your palace, at the people who've been saved, who are experiencing joy, to look at the city that's experiencing joy, and to think, I did this. This was me. I made this happen. And let me remind you, like, Queen Esther did not want this job. She did not want to do this. When Mordecai said to her, you have to go save your people, Esther was like, not me. I don't want to do this. And he said, you have to. And then she did. And she got up there and she was brave and she faced the king and she did what was needed to be done in order to save her people and to create this moment of joy. She was the orchestrator, the conductor who made this joy happen. So that's what I'm going to call Esther joy. Esther joy is that background orchestration person, that conductor, that director who makes joy happen for other people. And that's the kind of joy that I want to bring into my sukkah this year. This Esther joy, where joy can be created in the background so that other people can experience that joy. And I want to say that that's important right now on three levels. That Esther joy is important to me personally as Zoe. It's important to me religiously as a Jew. And it's important to me bigadol, in general, on a meta level. So the first is personally, Zoe. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 4 kids. And Sukkot takes a lot of prep. It takes a lot of preparation, the meals, the building of the sukkah, all of the things that you have to do. And there's a level of Esther joy for me personally because I get to sit back and watch my family experience that joy and know in my heart, that was me. That was a month of meal prep. That was a month of calling the handyman and booking him in advance to get the sukkah built, right? That was my work in the background that made this joy possible for other people. That's my personal level of Esther joy this season. Second level, as a Jew, as a member of the Jewish community, as a member of the Jewish world, in this season on Sukkot this year, with all that's going on in our Jewish world and in Israel and in the news, I think it's really important to remember that we're about to experience, we hope, Bezrat Hashem, with God's help, communal joy, moment of relief, a feeling of being saved, we hope, knock on wood. And it's important to remember that there are a lot of people in the background who made that happen. There are a lot of people who made their hands really dirty to make that happen on every level. People out in the streets protesting, people who were serving, people whose family members were serving, people in the government, people who were making speeches tirelessly for 2 years. There was a lot of work in the background to make this moment of communal joy possible. And I'm sure we're all remembering that, but I think it's important to say. And the third thing I want to say in general about this Esther joy is that I think it's always really important to remember that joy is not spontaneous. Joy is something that we can work for and that we can bring into existence through effort. Joy is not necessarily a natural experience. A lot of things are, life is very difficult, but joy is always possible if we acknowledge that it requires work. And there is what that can be done to make joy possible and to bring joy into existence. And so if we remember that joy is always possible, if we just put a little effort into making it happen, if we can have that Esther sensibility, that Esther perspective, that joy requires our participation and our work, then we can always know that joy might be just around the corner, whether for ourselves or for other people. Esther teaches us that joy requires getting our hands dirty, doing a little bit of work, being brave, but bringing joy down into this world for ourselves and for other people is always possible. So that is why I am bringing Esther into my sukkah this year and every year. And I want to wish everybody a good Zman Simchatenu, a good time of our joy. Chag Sameach.
Thank you so much, Zoe. That was so beautiful. And I love the idea that you need to do the work in order to bring the joy. That's so important. I want to ask everyone here to put in the chat, if you don't mind, one way in which on a personal or a national or a Jewish or a international national level, um, you plan on doing that work. You plan on bringing the joy in that way. And Zoe, I want to ask you, you gave such a beautiful example on the Zoe level of bringing the joy. Can you bring an example from one of the other two levels that you had mentioned about how to do the work to bring the joy? Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so personal level, it's like being a mom and bringing joy for my family.
Yeah.
Um, and on the Jewish level, I mentioned that, we're in this time of um, great, like on the cusp of joy, we hope. Um, and what I wanted to like really bring to the front is that a lot of work had to be done to bring this moment into the world, and I'm sure that everyone's going to hold that in their prayers, and in the next few hours, we're going to sort of bring that Jewish work right to the front of our lives, and I hope that everyone has the strength and the koach for this like final moments of bringing that into being. We hope. Um, and then on a bigger level, it's just like continuing to have like the the wherewithal to know that like joy is always possible even when you don't feel it. And this, Sukkot is a stressful time. You said it's a time of vulnerability, and like it's pouring outside right now in Philadelphia where I am, and I'm like this is not a time of joy, and it's like a very important reminder to myself that like joy is what you make it. Like it's not a naturally occurring phenomenon, joy. And so like you have to overcome something and have good perspective and do work to make it happen, and then joy is always possible. So that's sort of what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to invite our next educator to come and teach us, Rabba Wendy Amsellem. Well, Zoe told me that I should really introduce people as really my friends. So it's true. Rabba Wendy is my very wonderful friend. She teaches at Yeshivat Maharat and directs the Beit Midrash program at Yeshivat Maharat. She received smicha from Maharad and is an alumna of the Drisha Scholars Circle at Harvard University. Um, Whenever somebody, in terms of ushpizing and showing up for other people and being there, Wendy is really the queen of that. Whenever somebody needs somebody, Wendy is always there with something fun to do, and she is really a person who makes it her business to be with other people in good times and bad. So I'm really honored that Rabba Wendy is here with us.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. It's really fun to be sitting even in the same virtual sukkah as everybody else here. So when I was thinking about who I would want to invite to my sukkah, I was thinking that one of the verses in the Torah that describes what we're supposed to be doing on Sukkot, there's a verse in Leviticus that says, "Basukot teshvu shivat yamim." You should sort of sit in your sukkahs for 7 days. And the Sifra, which is a midrashic commentary on the verse, says, "Teshvu ein teshvu ela ke'ein taduru." When we say sit in the sukkah, it means we're really supposed to be living in our Sukkot. And then the Midrash goes on to give a couple of examples of how we can make the sukkah feel like we are living there. So it says, "Mikan amru ochel basukah v'shoteh basukah." A person should eat in their sukkah, a person should drink in their sukkah, a person should be at leisure in their sukkah, and a person should also bring their kelim. They should bring their household items into the sukkah, because what you're trying to do is take a new space and make it feel like home. And when I was thinking about what figure do I know of from history who I thought particularly kind of did a lot of work thinking about how to take a new space and make it feel like home, I thought about the following woman who I have always been fascinated by, and I will share my screen so I can show you her picture. The person that I would like to invite is Anzia Yezierska. Anzia Yezierska was a Jewish American author who immigrated. Her years are around 1880. We don't know exactly when she was born, to 1970. She immigrated from a town along the Polish-Russian border, either in 1890 or in 1893. The records are not super clear, and she was either 8 or 10 when she immigrated, depending on, exactly which records you're talking to or which account you are reading. And she lived in New York on the Lower East Side, and she wrote a whole series of both novels and short stories about the immigrant experience on the Lower East Side. And I first discovered her when I was in college, and I was particularly fascinated by her, partly because my grandmother had grown up on the Lower East Side, and the years that she wrote about was kind of the same time period that my grandmother was growing up. In her stories, there's almost always a young immigrant woman who is kind of burning with desire to learn more and to kind of become a person of knowledge. And in fact, the metaphor that she always uses is that the young immigrant woman has this tremendous hunger. And she, of course, has physical hunger because conditions were really rough for the new immigrants. But even more than that, she has this kind of metaphysical hunger to kind of learn more and be more. The young woman is kind of in the stories is often juxtaposed with her parents who are struggling to kind of make sense of the new world. It's hard to have America feel like their home. Often the father figure kind of retreats to studying his holy books because he kind of can't really begin to interface with this new space and make it into a home. The mother tries to figure out how to kind of shelter the children, how to provide food, but mostly it is up to the young woman in the story, both to kind of figure out how to get jobs, find ways to sort of support her family, but also how to get an education. And one of the things also that is very interesting to me about Anzia Yezierska is that the time period in which she writes kind of intersects with the time of intense debate about immigration in the United States. There were several different literacy bills that were proposed in Congress during the time where if an immigrant wasn't able to read in any language, they wouldn't be allowed in. The literacy bill was actually proposed 4 times. It was only passed on the 5th time. There were then 2 other extremely restrictive immigration acts, one in 1921 and one in 1924, that kind of really limited the number of immigrants who could come in, and there was a kind of a lot of racism involved in that. Also, it was kind of the way the calculus was made was skewed towards having more kind of immigrants from Western Europe as opposed to from Eastern Europe and so forth. So there's a lot of kind of debate going on in the country about immigration at the same time that Jezierska was writing these stories about immigrants. And I think that one of the things that she does through her literature is that she tries really hard to make an argument about why immigrants are important to America. Because, some people just thought immigrants were like a drain on society. Other people thought that immigrants were okay as long as they quickly assimilated into America. And the argument that she makes through her literature is that actually immigrants are important for America, not because they can quickly assimilate in, but because they bring kind of a vital energy that America needs. And the language that she uses for this vital energy is this hunger. In her stories, the immigrants have hunger, and the people who are kind of, she refers to them as the born Americans, they're no longer hungry. They have everything they need, and so they don't have this kind of vital energy, and they kind of need the immigrants to sort of awaken this energy. And I think by telling these stories, she's making a very interesting and important sort of political argument as well. She's basically saying, like, this country needs to make space for me, right? I belong here, and I belong here not just because you should be kind to me, but I belong here because I bring something to the table that this country needs. And I think in terms of thinking about how you make a new space into your home, it's about like figuring out where you belong in it, right? And I think what she does through her literature is she tries to figure out, where does she belong in this country, and why is it important for America to make room for her? And to give everybody a little bit of a sense of the kinds of arguments that she made, I pulled out a few excerpts. Again, here we go. And I guess afterwards in the chat, I would be curious who here has heard of Anna Jezierska before. Her most famous work is Bread Givers. Some people read that in school. This first excerpt is from a short story called Hunger that is in a collection of short stories that was called Hungry Hearts and Other Stories. Here in one of them, this woman, Shayna Bessa, says, "Hope leaped within her. Maybe I got yet luck to have it good in the world. Ah, God from the sky, I'm so burning to live, to work myself up for a somebody, and why not? With a clenched fist she smote her bosom. Ain't everything possible in the new world? Why is America but to give me the chance to lift up my head with everybody alike?" And later on in the story, she's talking to this young man who has taken a liking to her. And she says to him, here, I'll just read the whole paragraph. "Sam Arkin, she bent over him tenderly. I feel the emptiness of words, but I got to get it out. All that you suffer, I have suffered and must yet go on suffering. I see no end, but only there is something, a hope, a help out. It lifts me on top of my hungry body, the hunger to make from myself a person that can't be crushed by nothing nor nobody, the life higher." He saw her eyes fill with light as though she were seeing something far beyond them both. "This," she breathed, "is only the beginning of the hunger that will make from you a person who will yet ring in America." So another thing that she does actually is that she tries to figure out how to sort of use English to make it sound like Yiddish. One of the issues that a lot of the early kind of a lot of the early 20th century Jewish writers struggled with was how to kind of get the feel of Yiddish. So sometimes people would actually put in words in Yiddish and then translate them. Other people would try to like write it English, but like write it phonetically the way that it would sound. And what she does actually, which I think is really interesting, is she plays around with kind of the diction and the order of the words to kind of give it a Yiddish feel, even though the words themselves are English. Second excerpt over here is from an autobiographical essay that she wrote, How I Found America. She said, "What had I with my empty hands and my hungry heart to give to America? I had my hunger, my homelessness, my aching ignorance, my burning desire for knowledge." So kind of throughout her stories, there's this sense that what she is really doing is making a space for herself in her new home by kind of giving herself a reason to be there, right? She says, "I'm here because I have this great desire for knowledge. I have this great desire to become something. And you, America, you need me." And so I was thinking if I wanted to think about who might give me some wisdom about how to make a new space feel like a home, I thought that Anzi Zerska would be a good person to bring in. And I know that right now, our hearts and our thoughts are in Israel, and our great hope is for peace and for the hostages to return. But I also know that those of us who are living in America are really, another debate that is kind of going along with everything going on in Israel is kind of the role of immigrants in American society, and and what is a good way to be welcoming, and what is a good way to think about people. I think Rabbanit Aliza, you said in the beginning, who are the people that we invite into our sukkah? Who are the people who are more vulnerable than we are, who can make it feel like home? And I think sort of um, thinking about ourselves as Jews, as descendants of, almost all of us are descendants of immigrants, and like what that might mean for us as we think about the current debate about immigration going on in America. I think Anzi Zerska would have very useful and helpful things to say about it. So I would be very excited if she were to join me in my sukkah.
Thank you so much, Rabba Wendy. I had never heard of Adzia Yezerska before you just taught us about her. So thank you so much. And at the end, I'm going to be really curious, and I'm going to ask each one of you to kind of put in the chat at the end who you would like to invite into our sukkah. Somebody who you know, somebody who you knew, somebody who you wish you knew. And we'll put them into the chat and share them with the rest of us. Thank you so much, Rabba Wendy. Our next educator is Bracha Krohn, and you can see her here you go, her bio in the chat. I first really knew Mrs. Bracha Krohn through her blog that she writes for Camp Stone, because she's at Camp Stone where my daughter goes to camp, and she writes these amazing descriptions of what the campers learned that really makes you feel like you're right there with them and that you wish you could be there. Mrs. Bracha Krohn is the Menahelet of Midrashet Maria, a women's seminary in Israel, where she teaches Tanakh, Midrash, and rabbinic thought. Bracha has an enthusiasm for learning which permeates the classroom and which I'm sure you are going to see today. So I'll let you read the rest of the chat on your own and invite Bracha to come and teach us.
Hi, everybody. Happy Sukkot. It's my first time being here with SVIVAH, so I was very honored and excited to be invited. We have Aliza's brother-in-law. How does it go, Aliza? I know Aliza's brother-in-law. Grew up with him. And know Dahlia from camp, who's part of SVIVAH in Minnesota. Anyway, I've made my way here, and it's really just a pleasure to meet you all and be part of this. I am Zooming from Israel, where my husband and I and our kids moved here back in 2008. And a granddaughter was born here a year and a half ago, and that's been fun. So I'm here to teach about a woman that I want to invite into my sukkah, somebody that gives me strength, somebody that inspires me. And honestly, I think about this person a lot. I learned about her on a tour of the old city of Jerusalem one year with my students. Like Aliza was saying, I'm an administrator, I'm Menahelet in a seminary where girls come after high school. 18-year-old girls from all over the United States, and some from London, some from Canada, come and spend a year learning just Judaic studies, right, from September to June, and then go off to university. And I'll take trips with them and hikes with them, and I learn a lot along the way. And one of the things I learned was about this woman, Esther Sailing-Gold, or in English, you find her name is Kaylin-Gold. I just want to show you a picture of her. She's so beautiful and has such a wonderful, youthful smile. And I would love just for everybody to imagine her here. Right? Does that work, Aliza? You see her? Okay. So this is Esther. I've become a little obsessed with her. You'll see why in a minute. She's given me a lot of strength. She grew up in London to a family that had immigrated, as Wendy was just talking about, to a family that had moved from Warsaw to London. And she grew up there with her parents and some siblings. And her father started the Mizrahi movement in London. And she got her Zionist education at home with her family. She grew up in an Orthodox family, and her father was a big Zionist and taught about Zionism, and she caught on and developed a real passion, went to school there, graduated with honors, had a scholarship to a college, and graduated college at the age of 21 in 1946. Okay, and at that time she wanted to be a teacher. I guess that's something I relate to and connected with her. She was 21 at the time and applied to be a teacher in Israel. I can't imagine what that was like for her without all of our, FaceTime video chats and all of that, to be able to travel across the world a little bit and go out on your own. She obviously was very adventurous and brave, and she applied for a job at a high school in Jerusalem, at the Evelina de Rothschild School in Jerusalem. She applied for a job and she got it. And in the autumn of 1946, she applied for the job. She was hired and she arrived in Jerusalem December 1st, 1946. Okay. And you hear that date, December 1st, 1946. And she's going to be living through the War of Independence. May 1948 was a year and a half away. And Esther started teaching and eventually got roped into activities of the Haganah. And in October 1947, she joined the Haganah that was already working, right, towards trying to secure this homeland and work on what's going to happen, and how can we get the homeland, and fighting off Arab riots. And, you could imagine. Now, here's a girl who ended up joining these forces. So to me, my son now has joined the IDF and is in training. And I just watch sort of that, the strength it takes, the courage it takes, the patience it takes. And I, imagine this young woman as part of that. And it's not when women, nowadays I see a lot of soldier girls, but I wonder what it was like for her and being so far away from home. And she joined the Haganah. And eventually in January of 1948, so they knew that they had this homeland that the UN had given, right, the partition plan, and they knew that the British were leaving in May. And the Jewish people knew here in the homeland, all 600,000 plus people that were living here in Israel at the time knew that when the British pulled out in May of 1948, it was going to get scary, because then all the Arabs would feel free to attack, and we knew war was imminent. Another one of my heroes, when I told my husband I was doing the Zoom with you all, he said, "Oh, you can talk about Golda Meir?" Because I always talk about Golda Meir. And I said, no, I'm not doing Golda Meir this time. But Golda Meir also, like another immigrant and somebody who came to Israel and helped. She's amazing. Went back to America, collected $25 million to help the war effort that they knew was about to happen. So I'm thinking of all these women, So Esther is 22 years old, and it's January of 1948. And they know that the British are leaving in May, and she ends up leaving her job as a teacher. And she basically joins more, intense sort of help for the Jewish people. And she ended up taking on a role which was to run around ostensibly as a teacher. People knew her, and that's, I guess, what her paper said. But she really was supplying all sorts of arms and ammunition and food and drink to various outposts in the Jewish quarter. Okay. May 14th comes, May 15th comes, and we know the War of Independence broke out. And on May 16th, she sustains this a wound. She was attacked. The old Jewish quarter, was attacked, and she ends up getting hurt. She gets her wounds dressed, and she's able to continue, which she does for a little bit. Unfortunately, just a little bit later on May 26th, she was seriously injured. A building she was in exploded, it collapsed. She broke parts of her spine, and she had to be moved out to a different house, obviously. In the end, she slipped into a coma, and she died on May 29th. Okay, so she was doing this kind of work for a very little bit. She was helping from January through May. And on May 29th, just a month before her 23rd birthday, she slips into a coma from her wounds and dies. And I think of her, I'm going to read with you a letter that she left, but I think of her as someone who was young and idealistic and courageous. And then I learned about this letter. Okay. She left this letter for her parents. And when I read it, it really changed me. I'll show you how. Okay. So you see it with me, right? Big enough? I can try to make it bigger. Is it okay? It's good enough. I'll read it. Good enough for now? Okay. Dear Mommy and Daddy, I wish I had a better British accent. My daughter could do this so well. She has a great British accent, and she's dating a British boy now, so it's very cute. Dear Mommy and Daddy and everyone, If you do get this at all, it will be, I suppose, typical of all my hurried, messy letters. I am writing it to beg of you that whatever might have happened to me, you will make the effort to take it in the spirit that I want and to understand that for myself, I have no regrets. We have had a bitter fight. I have tasted of Gehenna, of hell, but it has been worthwhile because I am convinced that the end will see a Jewish state and the realization of all our longings. I shall only be one of many who fell in sacrifice, and I was urged to write this letter because one in particular was killed today who meant a great deal to me. Because of the sorrow I felt, I want you to take it otherwise, to remember that we were soldiers and had the greatest and noblest cause to fight for. God is with us, I know, in his own holy city, and I am proud and ready to pay the price it may cost to something. They don't know what it says, reprieve, something, okay, the holy city. Don't think that I've taken unnecessary risks. That does not pay when manpower is short. But I did find the excitement I always needed and have enjoyed it. I hope that you may have the chance of meeting any of my co-fighters who survive if I do not, and that you will be pleased and not sad of how they talk of me. Please, please do not be sadder than you can help. I have lived my life fully, if briefly, and I think that is the best way. Quote, short and sweet, she says, again, dying a month before her 23rd birthday. Very sweet it has been here in our own land. I hope you will enjoy from Mimi and Asher the satisfaction you have missed in me. Let it be without regrets, and then I too shall be happy. I am thinking of you all, every single one of you in the family, and I'm full of pleasure at the thought that you will one day, very soon I hope, come and enjoy the fruits of that for which we are fighting. Much, much love, and remember me only in happiness. Shalom and lehitraot, your loving Esther. I get so touched by it. I think because also we've seen so many kids, so many soldiers leave notes like this, and to think that this was going on, of course, decades and decades ago, since the beginning of this state, literally the first 2 weeks of this state, the young, the youthful, the age 18, 19, 20, 21, girls that I teach, this is the age I teach. And to imagine her, it seems like she's not even scared. Right. And here I am, we're scared. People are scared here. And she doesn't seem scared. And I think it's amazing that as an adult, I can borrow some of that from her. And to draw strength from the kids is something that the adults in Israel here do a lot. We really look to the youth who have a certain idealism and courage, and we get a lot of strength from them. I get a lot of strength from my kids, from their friends. And it helps us. It helps us. I think as we get older, we get more scared. People are relying on us. It's not so easy to say, it's okay. I'll take one for the team. I don't have the luxury of saying that when people rely on me, and I have kids I'm looking at, but these kids, they do that. And they do take one for the team. And that's really what I learned from her. One of the things I learned from Esther, besides how strong the youth are, and besides how much power an immigrant can have, which of course I take as something very inspiring. And besides the idea of living in the moment and rising to the challenge and all of that, I think the thing that I learned the most from her is that we live on if we connect to the Am. And I think that for me, that has given me a certain eternality that I never, ever felt I had. I never thought of myself as part of something bigger until I moved here. And I feel that the only way I was able to really breathe and move past and move through, what's happened here since October 7th, is to remember that we're a nation, and that it's not always about, and it can't always be about, individuals. Everybody here plays a role in the nation, and we as a nation always, always, always survive. And there was never a question that, Am Yisrael Chai, and that we'll win, and that we'll be okay, but not the individuals. A lot of people, neighbors here where I live, neighbors and children of neighbors were killed, and it's sad. It's really sad. And the only thing that's ever made me feel strong and happy is the positivity that comes with attaching myself to this nation that flies on a magic carpet through history. That's how it feels to me. So I think about her a lot. And I'm amazed by her, and we all owe her a gratitude of debt. She's actually buried in HerTorah. If you're ever in HerTorah, you can find her, at the bottom near those who were killed in 1948. And I just want to say, I think if I met her, I think sometimes, like, what would I want to ask her? You talk about like inviting someone from the past to your dinner or to your sukkah. And I really want to ask her what she wants us to remember her by. What does she want me to say about her? What did she want me to live on with? I hope I'm saying the right characteristics and the right qualities of hers, and that we're drawing on the strength that she left for us in the way that she wanted us to. So may her memory be for a blessing, and may we always celebrate this country, as we know from the famous Israeli poem on the silver platter, on which it is served, from our youth, mostly our youth, unfortunately, sometimes grown-ups too, but a lot on the youth. So, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Bracha. Wow, it has been so amazing learning about the Esther joy. I mean, of course, I knew about Queen Esther before, but Zoe, you framed it in a totally different way. And about Anzia, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Yezerska, and is that right, Rabba Wendy? And Esther Kallengold. It's so amazing to bring these women back in to, or I don't know about back in, to bring these women into our consciousness, and to realize that people lived like this and that we can live like this too, and we can draw strength from them. So I want to thank all of you, Zoe, Wendy, and Bracha. Um, I know that some people have already been doing this in the chat, but if you want to add in the chat anyone who you would like to bring into our communal sukkah today, somebody who you think can hold us during these very, sorry, tense times, please put that in the chat. Um, and in the meantime, Jordan, if you could share the slide, um, we can just read out the names of the 20 hostages who living hostages who we hope will come back in as good health as possible. And of course, we're thinking about their families and their friends. We're thinking about the bodies of the people who were taken, who we hope they will all come back to us, and that their families and their friends will have some closure. We're thinking of the people who perished on October 7th and afterwards, the soldiers, victims of terrorism. But we're also holding on to the hope that these 20 will come back, and that we will envelop them with prayers and with love and with all the goodness that we can. So I'm going to read out their names. Matan ben Einav Zankauer, Eitan ben Ruti Idit Horn, David ben Sylvia Conio, Ariel ben Sylvia Conio. And I'll just pause and say that, like, right after October 7th, there was an initiative where you wrote to somebody on WhatsApp and they gave you the name of somebody to pray for. And I got Ariel Conio, and I've been praying for him ever since. Omri ben Veronia Esther Miran, Gali ben Talia Berman, Ziv ben Talia Berman, Nimrod ben Vicky Cohen, Tamir ben Cherut Nimrodi, Matan Shachar ben Anat Angrest, Aminatan or Ditza ben Ditza Tirza, or Elkanah ben Ruchama Bochbat, Eitan Abraham ben Ephrat Mor, Abiatar David ben Galia David, Alon ben Idit Ohel, Yosef Chaim ben Miriam Ohana, Rom ben Tamar Broslavsky, Guy ben Meirav Gilboa Dalal, Sega ben Galit Kalfon, Maxim ben Talia Harkin, Bar Abraham ben Julia Cooperstein, and Bipin Joshi. May they come home soon into the loving hands of and arms of their families. So thank you so much to our wonderful educators. Thank you to everybody who responded in the chat about who they would like to bring into the sukkah. And I'm going to hand it over to Ariella.
Wow. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Thank you, Zoe and Wendy and Bracha and Aliza. Thank you for giving us this moment of like an infusion of Sukkot, an infusion of strength in this crazy moment of anticipation, and for giving us these reminders of so much of what we need to hold on to this Sukkot, working for our joy, thinking about our welcoming and the values that we hold on to and that we bring to the table, and strength and courage and peoplehood. Everybody, like you, we are holding our breath, and just it's crazy to say goodbye and wish you a rest of your Chag Sameach and a wonderful Simchat Torah and everything that it is and holds. But we're just going to hold our breath and pray and walk through these days together. I'm going to put in a plug just for our Facebook group as a space to always connect and find someone. One of us is not us, like one of all of us is hanging out there. So if you need just a hug or just someplace to be with other people, our Facebook group is there. Our WhatsApp group, we use it sparingly, but if we're going to come together, you'll find out fast through that WhatsApp group. And just thank you for being here today. I'm going to wish everybody a Moed Tov. This should be a Shavua Tov, a very good week, and a preemptive Chag Sameach, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. Thank you for filling this sukkah with all of these beautiful people.